Mats. Look, we got a new, I don't know what you call it, transition logo that Umble got for us. I think it's awesome. I'm Go Horns Go, along with Umble the Heap, and we are here to talk about eCarnage 2021. Two games, and really something happened for the first time ever, which is Umble and I played virtual face-to-face games. We each played two, and we were both in both games, and we were neighbors in both games. Our podcast is always sponsored by diplomacybriefing.com, which featured me last week and Katie Gray this week. So, Umble, tell us about diplomacybriefing.com, and then let's jump into the games.
So the briefing is a weekly email that updates everybody about what's going on in the diplomacy community, and it's free. It just connects everybody together. You can go to diplomacybriefing.com. You can also hit us up on all our social media pages, but it is always has a strategy article every single week. And yeah, it's it's really become kind of the place that everybody goes so that you can keep knowing what's happening everywhere. So we got a great team of editors. We have a team of 6 that work on it. And so go ahead, subscribe, be a part of it, and don't miss out.
Couldn't agree more. Well, I'll tell you what you missed out of was a top 10 finish in eCarnage 2021. I mean, we played 2 games together, and there were 3 games, but you could only play in 2. It didn't quite work out for you.
No, but this tournament should forever be known as the Umble Charity Tournament because this was the opportunities for people to play a game with me where, I was basically trying to be Santa Claus and be helpful to people. And this never happens. But, normally I'm playing for my best result. And that's how I approach the games. I'm very clinical on what's the best plan, what's the best thing going forward. And this is the first tournament where I've ended games and not had a headache. So this should give you an idea of how the level of focus was not nearly as intense, which, by the way, I've changed I've changed how I'm going to approach these games in the future for some of these reasons that we'll talk about as we go over these few games. But I was only going to be able to play 2 rounds out of the 3. And so because this was a tournament where every round counted, I knew that the only way I was going to have, be able to win the tournament or even have a great finish was you're going to have to solo. So because I was only going to be able to do 2 of those games, I decided I would play the tournament, but I would play to have fun. In the DBNI, in my second round game, I had already qualified for the final board. So I just approached it in a sense like, hey, you know what? I'm not going to, try to be ruthless or anything like that. Let me see if I can help somebody else have a good game and then have fun doing it. And so I really enjoyed that second round. And so my thought process coming into this tournament was, hey, I'll play this like the second round of the DBNI. I'll try to help someone else have a really good game. And by the way, in that regard, I was successful. Both the people I tried to help topped the board. But I did not have that much fun in the tournament. And I think how I'm going to approach these games in the future are going to be very, very different for a lot of different reasons that we're going to discuss. And so I definitely enjoyed my first round game better than my second round, but I'm definitely going to, I'm sure you did, but that has more to do with you than me in the second round. The first round, I think you enjoyed very much because of me. So we should probably jump into that and get going.
All right. So you and I got stuck in the East on this game. We had Katie Gray, the ultimate tournament winner, as France. England was Hunter Catcher, DBNI invite last year, and Germany was Wardy from England. And we had a murderer's row in the East with Morgante as Russia, me as Italy, top murderer himself, Andrew Goff, as Austria, and you as Turkey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, it was a awesome board. when and by the way, too, Carnage was a smaller tournament, and the list of players definitely was, I would say, pretty top heavy in some different ways. And so I don't know if top, I guess that's not the right word to say. I mean, what I say is that there was a overall, I think, stronger level of skill in this tournament than what you kind of see in the ones that are 70 to 100 players. And so this particular board, though, I mean, you've got the 3-time world champion, Andrew Goff there in Austria. And then, you know, tournament winners on this board, you have you, Hunter, Katie, who won it, and then also Morgante. So 5 of the 7 are people that have won tournaments just, you know, within the last 2 years.
And
And
you're awful, and you're not even in that
right,
on that list. You're just a
right,
horrible player.
right. I'm on the low end of the scale. You know, good finishes, but so anyway, I'm there in the corner as Turkey. And anyway, so it's a really, really fun and interesting board. And honestly, I'm very disappointed with how I treated Goff in this game. I made some bad calculations, and anyway, we'll get into that. But it was a really fun board to play. I did enjoy this game a lot, but there was a major mistake I made later on that I owe public apologies for.
All right. So, okay, as we look at the game, I can tell you that you know, we don't need, it went to 1913, so we don't need to go through every nook and cranny, but opening wise, uh the only thing I was sort of resolved on was getting to know Andrew better and
Mhm.
not letting Andrew really expand too much because, you know, because of his danger. I was obviously a little bit worried about you with Turkey, but I thought maybe we could work together, even though, you know, we have different styles and we've never played a face-to-face game before, and our online game didn't go so well a long time ago. And then Morgante, who I've had a history with, pro and con. So right now, I'm leaning pro Russ in the beginning, and sort of anti Andrew and Morgante.
Yeah, so my thoughts on the whole thing when I was looking at the board really was, you know, I guess not get jumped. You know, again, I wasn't, I was kind of like, well, let me just let the game come to me, see what happens. And so I opened pretty defensively. I mean, I had good vibes from Morgante. I had good vibes from Goff and from you. So this opening, I would have probably done this a little bit differently, because I do want to talk a little bit at some point in one of the a briefing issue down the road. I want to talk a little bit more about how to maximize your alliance possibilities as Turkey, because I think a lot of people limit their possibilities. So, but so I opened up in that way because I've done ITs now twice in the last 2 times I played Turkey, and so I think I have some ideas on how to set things up so that Italy feels comfortable working with Turkey and you can have a long-term one. And one of the things you got to remember in that way is that you then need to open and then continue to build and move so that Italy doesn't feel threatened. And so not moving Ankara to Khan really at any point is really, really important if you want Italy to want to work with you. Once Ankara goes to Khan, the chances of Italy working with you go down the drain. So that's something to remember. But yeah, I had good negotiations with everyone. And you know, I joked around with Morgante some because, you know, he likes to, when he's Turkey, try to get Russia to give him Sevastopol. And so I jokingly said with him, so do you only like that when you're Turkey or with Russia? And so he said he was okay if Russia, but I didn't really push it because I don't really think that was, you know, I don't know if he would have really given that to me. It doesn't seem like a great play for Russia.
It,
But
yeah, I mean, Andrew had asked me to move to Tyrolia. He told me that I could move to Tree in the spring. I mean, in the fall if I wanted to. I believed him. I didn't think it was a trick, but uh, he had also sort of uh, you know, told me, look, he's fine with me as long as I build fleets, that we DMZ Trieste. And I just don't think he hit it off very well with Morgante early. And that was as soon as I heard that, as soon as he came back, and as soon as Morgante told me he wanted to kill Goff, and as soon as Goff told me he wanted to kill Morgante, I knew my whole focus was going to be to get them two fighting, because I thought that would be nothing but good for me.
Yeah, that was interesting to me because I never really ever got that they connected. And so I'm not sure exactly why that was the case. I guess I never got that, so you were saying you felt like Morgante didn't like what Goff was offering him?
Yeah, I think Morgante basically just wanted to kill him.
Really?
And viewing him as the biggest threat on the board, and as Austria. And
See,
I'm of course a little worried about empowering Russia soon. And then Goff was just telling me how much he didn't really hit it off with Morgante, and didn't explain why, but
yeah.
it didn't feel like a lie from either of them. Both were saying how they didn't like the other, and I was, it didn't seem like that was a coordinated communication. So I played that up as much as I could, and I
Yeah.
told you that too.
Yeah, Morgante said the same thing. Oh, we got to watch out for Goff. But I mean, I didn't really put a lot of stock into that because, at least my approach, here's a few things. First off, like, if you want to be the best, you've got to be able to play with the best. So you can't go into something saying, oh, this guy's so good, and be intimidated by that. And so I don't think Morgante thinks that way either. So when he was just saying that, I was like, okay, whatever, I mean, like, for me, like, the idea of being able to play an alliance with Andrew Goff is a great thing. Like, that's a learning experience, to play a game like that. It's a confidence builder, or you learn things, right? And so I didn't go into it saying, oh, hey, I really want to ally with Andrew against Morgante, but seeing that, they didn't seem to coordinate much together was interesting to me. I'd love to know more about why. I've talked with Morgante a little bit, and he wasn't sure exactly why they didn't hit it off either. And so I've not really cracked, the code for why that was the case, but it was kind of interesting that didn't work. I mean, great for me as Turkey, right?
Right. And I mean, also, like I just hit it off with Goff, pretty well. And the moves here, as we turn into the fall, he invited me to Trieste. I asked him what he wanted me to do with Ionian, fully expecting him to tell me to move it to Aegean. And he's like, no, no, no. He goes, create deception that there's some AI problems. So move your army to Venice, build two fleets, uh, you know, keep the mystery going. And I was like, well, yeah, great, no problem. So I felt like I was in a great spot with this fall move.
Yeah. And, I think one of the things that pushed me against working with Morgante going into the next year was mainly because that I knew you had a good position. And so I wasn't really afraid that Goff would ever, if me and you were on either side of him and you had a strong position and I had a strong position, I wasn't really worried that somehow Goff is going to take over the east side of the board. I mean, he's great, but the math is against him doing that if he has Turkey and Italy that are going to not allow him to have that position unless, I guess, he divides us. So your guys' relationship, the lack of working with Russia, and then me and Andrew, I felt he was very sincere with wanting to work together too. And that might just be his skill set, but I wanted to work with him, and I believe the same thing that, I felt like long-term game dynamics, me working with you and him, at least in the short term, was going to be a lot better than me working with Morgante, and perhaps we could have turned on him and divided him up, but that's kind of anticlimactic, right? Oh, hey everybody, let's jump off. That's not exactly the greatest, to me, the greatest story. So
Yeah, no,
I
and I
moved.
had no interest in just wiping them out. Uh,
Mhm.
I wasn't worried to work. I mean, I've worked. Look, I mean, I haven't worked with three-time world champions, but I don't mind working with good players. I tend to hit it off with them.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing, like, if Ed can work with somebody who doesn't know him, he's always going to do that because he only gets one chance. And then after they actually play with him and get to know him and realize the scumbag that he is, they're never going to do it again. So I definitely get you wanting to work with Andrew. So, it's you got to take
So,
advantage of that.
so here at this point, I mean, you and uh,
Yeah.
Turkey decide to go against Russia,
Yeah.
and Andrew had told me he was inclined to do this, and I said, okay, yeah, no problem. I think I was surprised, as was Andrew, surprised that Munich moved to Tyrolia. But sort of the idea here now is all right. I've made a DMZ with France. Where am I going to really go? And I'm monitoring to see how much Andrew's getting out of this because I don't want him to get so big.
Yeah. It might have not have been a bad idea for you to bounce in Tyrolia. So you're saying you didn't know that?
No, we didn't know. We just didn't think it would happen. If you want to know the truth.
Yeah. Because it's yeah, that's interesting. Of course, the point of this whole game is going to be that, we weren't able to manage the West ultimately and have a lot of influence there. But I didn't move my army up to Khan in the fall of '01 because I wanted to be able to build that fleet and give me some options. And yeah, so it was just, hey, let's all go in and kill Russia. And obviously Morgante, that wasn't what he wanted, but I mean, there's not a lot he can do in this moment. Now it's interesting that Vienna to Bohemia. What was his point there? Why did he do that?
Yeah, Goff just comes to me and goes, "What Germany has done, entering Tyrolia without our permission, demands immediate punishment."
Hmm.
That's what he told me.
Hmm.
He's like, we must move there, and
Hmm.
I was fine with that because
Yeah.
I believed him, and it got his army out of Budapest, and I think this was a critical issue though because he gives up Galicia to do this.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's yeah. I mean, I think a big issue in the game ultimately, especially from the East, was being able to evaluate Wardy in Germany. And this is going to end up being my big mistake. You know, Wardy and Morgante, so we're talking about Germany and Russia here, had played a tournament where they allied together in every single game. And they got in, I think, first and second, right? Is in GudCon. Morgante got first, Wardy got second. And I should have been able to put this together and say, wait a minute, Wardy is not going to take down Morgante. He's just not going to do it. Now, maybe there's the possibility, but from everything I knew, the information I had was that Wardy was not at a place I feel tactically and diplomatically and, with a fortitude to, I'm going to maximize my play. And so because of that, he's more influenced by what people tell them in the moment than what is necessarily the best plan and the best thing for his nation. And so his moving to Tyrolia, I mean, who knows why he did that? Katie could have said something to him. Actually, you know what happened? I'm sure Morgante told him to do it. I'm sure that's what happened. Morgante said, hey, throw an army down there. And then you probably talked to him and he moved it away, right?
Yeah, well, I did have a talk with him about it, and he was like, "I thought you would want me down there." I find him like a really really nice guy. And Wardy, if you're
Sure.
listening, I'll say this about you: you remind me, as a lawyer, you remind me of a judge that rules for the attorney who speaks last. you know, like my goal for you next time is to make sure I'm the last person to speak to you.
Well, I think at a certain point in this game, like almost everybody who was playing realized that about maybe another 4 or 5 years in, and it became for a period in there, who can talk to Wardy last? Like that was like the goal. And I think everybody was like, wait a minute, we're gonna get anything done, we got to talk with them last, until like eventually for me, I just gave up. I was like, I can't do this anymore. But
Yeah.
no, a super nice guy. Like I like Wardy a ton. He's definitely up there with one of my favorite people. But I I feel ultimately, really hurt his ultimate, chances long term. So yeah, the Tyrolia move, you know, you hear from some of these some of these really great players, some of these world champion players that talks about like if you're going to move somewhere, you need to have a purpose, right? And throwing an army into Tyrolia and then pulling it out is not a purpose, right? It's just doing something, and sometimes that can turn out okay, but you get a response like Goff, does here, and it changes up how things go.
Yeah.
On our
The South is a range with Goff. I
Yeah,
had thought about moving to West and Lyon, but Goff was really kind of against it, saying, that's just going to induce a French fleet build in Marseille. So wait till the spring. So I did. I don't know in retrospect if I should have waited or
yeah.
not.
What go back to 1902. Let's take a look
We're
at
in
it.
'02.
Well, I mean, go back to spring. I'm sorry. Let's take a look real quick. In the spring, yeah, no, he's definitely right. You want to wait till spring 1903 and see the lay of the land. Whenever you make that move as Italy, generally you always want to make that move when there's not going to be a build, or do it in the spring. So if there's not going to be a build, then sure, do it in the fall. So no, he's absolutely right there. And right, that Aegean move was planned. But yeah, we're going to loses two. And we're cooking right along.
We're cooking right along. You know, Goff is geared towards Russia. You're geared towards Russia. Goff is getting into the middle of the board. I mean, we can gobble them up if we need to, or I have my fleet power, but at this point, the three of us were kind of hitting it off, so we were working together. And I
Right.
break my DMZ with Katie and make the move on France.
Yeah, now that's interesting to me. Why did you do Tyrolia and not just move Venice over?
We made a deal with Wardy.
Oh, great. Yeah. So this is again, so he knows you're moving on France.
Correct. Or I think
Oh,
I said I'm moving back. I didn't tell him it's Piedmont.
oh yeah. So you should just move Venice, because even, I mean, at least you guys continue to put pressure, right, on him to work with you. I think Venice to Piedmont would have been the move, because then at least you can break support, right? At the end of the day, if there comes to be a need, or at the very least, you can maybe try to make Wardy make the right move. I don't know if that would have worked or not, but that might have been the better move than to leave that open. But I don't know. I mean,
Right.
it's not a killer. Ours, we're just kind of slowly making position there on Morgate. He's gonna lose Warsaw and Moscow at some point. It's just a matter of, outguessing and making the best tactical move and grinding it out. But yeah, you make the move on Katie. So
And
yeah, I
then,
don't know
yeah,
if go
go
ahead.
ahead. Well, as we move into the fall, I had a guess. I had a 50-50 on either Marseille or Spain. I guessed wrong, but I didn't mind making this guess because I got I decided that I would make the unwanted support. I wasn't sure if she would bounce with Gascony or not into Marseille, because there she couldn't build a fleet there, and I was okay with that.
Yeah, yeah. Hmm. And then you went back up to Tyrolia.
Correct. Yeah. No, I mean, it was you know how these things go. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
it's heat of the moment sometimes.
Right, right. No, I get it. Well, and I should say on my side too, especially as we go into this next year, Goff's getting more and more. I mean, he's getting a little antsy, because my position is getting, stronger. And um, and by the way, me and Goff are having good conversations. I'm really enjoying allying with him, and he's being pretty differential as Austria to me. I mean, he's the bottom line is this: like, it was very easy to go with Goff because the plan he offered was more concrete and better terms than anything Morgante offered. And I'm not saying Morgante offered anything wrong. It's just Goff was very concrete. Hey, this is what we're going to do. This is where we'll go. And so it was very easy. So it had really, I mean, for me, I'm the type of player that the person that offers me the best plan, that's generally going to be the way I'm going to go, unless, there's some real personal reasons why I can't trust what you're saying.
Yeah.
But I am pretty much hey, give me a good plan and I'll listen to it. Like, I'll change up my attack patterns. I'll completely change my mind on something if someone offers a really good plan. So, I think that's how you play diplomacy well, is always evaluating, okay, well, what is the best plan going forward? And so Goff is consistently offering that. And he's, as far as I'm concerned, I'm really enjoying working with him. So things are going good. And so yeah, as we go into this next year, I haven't got any builds, but we've got better position now. I'm in Ukraine, he's in Sevastopol, and now things are going to begin to drop.
Right. And I'm a little frustrated at this point. Losing the guest to France. France gets another build. I'm very worried I won't win the next guest because there's another guest coming. And I don't really want to move on Goff. I'm not in a position to. Morgante's obviously trying to get me to move against Austria or you. I'm not really inclined to do any of that. I would hate being in Italy, just locking up the line in the West and not otherwise growing, right? So that's what I'm fearful of. Notice Morgante here is affirmatively helping France,
right?
At this point, and I think Morgante played a really good game, aligning with France and Germany. They went back and forth, as we'll see, but that was a great move for him.
In my opinion, I would say Morgante probably played the best game out of any of us in this particular one. If you want, with what he was handed and how he went about doing some strategic things. Now, I think there were some things that helped him. A big thing being who was playing Germany, but because I think he would have been dead a lot sooner if it wasn't Wardy playing it. I'm very confident of that, actually. But most Germanys wouldn't allow themselves to sit around for like 10 years not getting anything and letting themselves to be pieced apart. But I think Morgante played a excellent game. I mean, it's between him and Katie, in my opinion, to who played the best game, but probably who impacted the board the most with a lot of the decisions they made, probably Morgante, in my opinion.
Right.
So I have a huge amount of respect with how he played the West, ultimately to his survival and advantage. So he's doing some very good things. Building up France is very good for him because that's a natural in an alliance. And not only that, he's making things a little more difficult on you so that our alliance can't continue to move west. Now, I suppose an interesting question is, did you and Goff have any conversations about ever going after me?
Well, yeah, but most of that was sort of off the table once he committed against Russia.
Yeah. We talked. We never talked in depth about taking you out, though I think that could have happened, for sure. And that, that definitely could have happened. And that might have ended up being the act, what might have gone on, if I hadn't decided to turn on Goff later on because of discussions with Germany. But yeah, let's go to the next year.
Yeah. So as we go into the fall, of course, I made the correct guess. You continue to advance your position, but then, Germany is now in Livonia. And so, here we are in this spot. Now, and you see Munich move to Tyrolia again.
Yeah. And you can see Wardy, so now he's in Livonia. So whereas, he had helped Russia a little bit before, now he's, now he's in Livonia, and it's kind of this move set here that in my mind, it's like, okay, maybe he is going to work with us, because in my mind, what I now see as an end game is me, you, and Wardy getting a 3-person board top. So that's where my mind is going, because I'm looking at it like me and Wardy can finish up Russia, you and me can finish up Goff, and you and him can finish up France. And so nice, easy breakdown. We all do good. And that's what I'm pitching to Germany, that, hey, this is the easy way to go about it. We can all work together.
And you came to me excited about, now's the time to turn.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think it's going into this next year. Yeah.
It's right. It's coming. I mean, I build an army, which I knew that you had said it's coming, but I wanted to build an army if it was coming, even though Goff, had told me never to build an army without permission.
Yeah.
I did that, and I'm like, well, look, Tyrolia is right there. And he was like, no, you needed to build a fleet. That was crazy. You needed to build a fleet. And
Yeah.
I was like, no, I needed to build an army. We can bounce in Trieste.
Yeah. Yeah. What's amazing to me, I'll have to find it. I don't know the answer to this. If I can't imagine that Wardy gave Denmark to Morgante. Like, I know later on there was stuff that happens, but what's crazy is, so this was the pivotal moment, the pivotal move. Everything, this next, going into the fall, this move was pivotal. Everything that I've been working on, talking with Germany, I'm willing to not grow as big as I could grow, for the simple fact that, we're going to be able to move this into an end game and probably be done with this game in like 3 or 4 years. And so what I'm offering Germany is, hey, hit Norway, right? Hit Norway, and then I will take St. Petersburg in the fall. And then I'll support you in to take the North. You can take Norway, you can take Sweden. And I said, we can, you and Ed can work together against France and get your builds there. And so this is the big thing I'm pushing for. It seems to me like, yeah, he's going to want to work with that because of that time he moved into Livonia. Then you and him are working together. And so everything looks great, right? And I even, in my mind, I talk with you, I say, look, I will, because we have set up these bounces in Bulgaria, right? I said, you know what? I will let you into Greece and give you a build, right?
You told me that.
Yeah, and I didn't have to do that, right? I could have played this and got my own build off of it and not lost anything. And so I said, well, I'll give you the Greece build, so you get an extra build, and I'll go down one there, because to me, and how I looked at it, I'll take Bulgaria back anyway. This gets you a little bit better position in what you're trying to do. And so I'm really trying to really work this into a great end game with you, Wardy, and me. And so Wardy says, yes, I will do that. I will support, I will hit Norway so that you can take St. Petersburg, and Russia is going to go down 2. And at that point, then Russia's just at 3. This is just mop up time. And the full comes through, and what happens?
Well, I got to just say one thing.
Okay.
I was really risking it because I knew what you were going to do. And Andrew and I are talking, and we had agreed to the bounce in Trieste. And so I was talking to Wardy, and he seemed to be on board at the plan, and he said he would support me into Trieste, right? That way he puts us into position, and it looks like I kept my word to Andrew. Now, of course, I moved Piedmont to Venice as part of a follow-up, and Andrew was like, how did this happen? And I was like, oh, well, Germany gave me unwanted support. And he goes, well,
there's no way you could believe that.
Well, I think he did believe it, but he then goes, okay, but I don't understand the move to Piedmont then. And I was like, oh, well, that's in case, Germany decided to go to Venice. Yeah. And he was like, but you were bouncing me. He couldn't have taken Venice. And I was like, yeah.
Right. the classic Ed, this is the classic Ed response. Well, I'm terrible at tactics.
That's basically what I said. I said, you can actually think I am dumb or playing dumb. I can just tell you I'm dumb.
Yeah.
And
There's always a one-liner too with it. So,
and so and, and I mean, I just sat there in the room and I was real careful not to come and talk to you because I knew
yeah.
what the plan was. But I didn't want him to think I was in any way talking to you.
Mhm.
But you know, he could have obviously snuffed out what was about to happen, which was
Well, yeah. And here's the thing that got me, that was really was disappointing about what Wardy did. Like, if he wasn't going to do it, that's fine. But then it wasn't like, Wardy was like doing some Machiavellian thing to mess me over. It was just Morgante talked with him last. In fact, this is what Wardy told me. He said, I asked Morgante about the plan, and Morgante said that he didn't think I should bounce him in Norway, that wasn't good for me. It was like, first of all, why are you bouncing? See, this is why. Oh, my word. First of all, you don't need to ask the person that you're going to stab if it's a good plan. Okay. All right. That you've been playing diplomacy long enough. You are smart enough to make this decision yourself. And no, here's how actually Wardy said. He said, I told him I was going to do this. And so then Morgante asked me, well, what good does that do me if I'm bouncing you in if I'm helping you get St. Petersburg? And I didn't have a good answer. And I said, well, here's how you respond. Turkey has already told me then he's going to support me into all the rest of your centers, and we're going to divide the board. I mean, but first of all, you shouldn't be telling them anyway. Like, of course, the person that you're going to be taking all their centers is going to say, oh, that's not a great plan, And so it was, and here's the other thing, like, Germany should be able to look right now and say, the only way I'm going to grow is if I get Russia's centers. There's no other way. Like, if you look at the board right now and you're Germany, you're not going to be getting anything from France unless they work with you. They're not going to get anything from Russia unless they work with me. And so there's only one play for you to make if you want a board top. And the thing is, like, I feel like me and you both had shown him in every which way, right? Because I think this whole thing with it, that we wanted to work with them. Now, could it all be some giant trap at the end that we change your mind? I mean, of course, there's always, I'm sure that can always be in the back of somebody's mind, but I mean, you've got to be able to look at the board and say, look, this is the way for me to have a good game. And I have no intention at all of going back on that. I mean, like, to me, this direction was a great way for the board to end. And he just got taught, and I get it. There's a lot of players that they're kind of just at this point where they're still kind of getting, they're kind of, I like to say they're getting their sea legs with diplomacy, getting to the point where you can say, you know what, I'm going to push out the noise and make the best decision. And it's never a good decision to be waffling back and forth and to be moving from one plan to another, just depending on what somebody tells you. And I think Wardy's a little more susceptible to that anyway, just because he is I'm not saying people.
No, look, let me put it away. He told me that he read something I wrote, which is that I really like to be liked. And he said he suffers the same thing. And I think that's true. He doesn't want to be the bad guy.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say, that he's a really nice guy. And so that can be a little bit longer, because then you can kind of have this idea that, well, if I don't do what this person wants, then they're not going to like me, or they're not going to think I'm a nice guy. And I just want to say this, like, the best way to get an applause at the end of the game is where you made the right move, right? Where you made the best move for you. And so people are just they're going to applaud you if you make that right decision. And so this objectively, to me, was what you had to make as Germany. I thought we had set this up, and he's here bouncing his ideas off the people that we're talking about killing on whether they think it's a good plan. So I don't know. Hopefully this game will, be a good learning experience. I've learned some things from this game too.
Well, meanwhile, I was pretty happy here. I negotiated a stand down from Katie, and I said, I'm going to vacate Marseille if you promise not to take it in 05 and you can take it in 06.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. and that allowed me to get an army in position. We go into the fall. I
But I suppose the question there is though, why is that really that important for you, right?
I was just locked up otherwise, right? Like I wanted my units to be able to, you know, I
Yeah,
didn't
but
know
it's
what
a
was happening with France. France told me she was going to make the move on Germany at the time, and even though you had a plan with Wardy, I wouldn't have been opposed to, you know,
well,
working
we
with
switched to
Katie.
that. Yeah, we switched to that because so you can see here, I make the move again because Wardy says, yes, I'll hit Norway. I said, look, you can hit me there, and then I'm gonna, we'll be able to get you here, here, and there. And so I literally, I make that promise that okay, we'll do it this way. And he says, okay, I'll hit Norway. And I even in this conversation say, look, don't be telling me you're going to do something and then not do it. That's what really, and if anything annoys me, it's saying you're going to do something and then not doing it. And there's no real reason besides you just got talked out of it from someone.
Right.
That's where I lose confidence with you as a player. And we're just like, I can't trust you to make the moves that you say. And if you're not going to make them, that's fine. Just say I'm thinking about it, or I still got other things to consider. But and I think with Wardy, his thing kind of was like, well, you were, kind of pushing me, and he didn't want to say no, right? It's the same thing, he's being a nice guy. But what I think people don't realize is when you just say yes rather than just saying no, like he could have said no. Instead, he was kind of waffling on it. When you don't just say no, then you actually are starting to close diplomatic doors. Like
Yeah.
if people know, and so you don't ever, the choice is not, hey, they kept asking and I wouldn't commit. Because sometimes people think if you don't commit, then automatically that means that the other person should know that it's no. And there's a lot of diplomacy players, and me included, that when someone doesn't make a commitment, sometimes my thought is, well, maybe you'd like to need some more reasons for that. So it's better just to say no and save time, but definitely not to lie about things that don't matter. Because that really, I think, hurts the game going forward with your ability to negotiate. Because after this move, I never believed anything Wardy said to me about anything. I had no confidence at all the rest of the game with anything Wardy said.
So we moved to the fall, and Wardy definitely, doesn't do what he says here, causing me to lose Trieste. Andrew makes a good move on Khan with you. I think a lot of people would question why you didn't bounce Khan. Obviously, it was out there as a potential.
Yeah, I thought about doing Black Sea to Khan also, but I was really worried there that first of all, I thought there might be some kind of move on Bulgaria or even just a bounce. And I didn't want to get out of position. I wanted to be able to build and convoy right away. And I knew I was going to be getting a build, no matter what, right? I was going to be getting
Right.
Warsaw most likely. I'm getting Bulgaria. So even if I lose one, I'm still building. So it's not, it's okay. So I decided to gamble on it, and he guessed right. I and then the other reason I went to Smyrna there too is just my general thought is it was just going to be ultimately a better spot to be. I probably should have gone, held, but it is what it is,
Yeah.
you know.
So I have a disband, which I'm not happy about, but I'm not too worried. I'm just working on Wardy as best I can.
Well, I think at this point, I come to you. I actually in the fall I came to you this last fall, in the previous year, and I said, look, Wardy's unreliable. Let's work with Katie to get this to a three-way draw. I said, that's got to be our Wardy's just going back and forth. Let's go. I know I said that to you at this point. I said, Katie's got to be the way that we do this going forward. And and looking back, I feel especially bad here about doing this to Goff because I basically traded the three-time world champion for Wardy. It's what happened. And I did it because I believed that Wardy could be that third player. And so what I ultimately now am accomplishing in the game is that I have stabbed Goff and got no payoff off of it because I traded a reliable ally for an unreliable one. And I would have never in a million years stabbed Goff if I had not trusted Wardy to make the play that he did. And I feel really bad about that. I really do. I wish I think that's something, I think the biggest reason it was a mistake on my part is I should have known the connection that Morgante and Wardy had. I just, going into the game, I didn't think about what connections do these two have. I mean, they wrote for the briefing, both of them. So I from that tournament. So I knew I had talked about the whole thing and I just didn't put it together. And if I would have done that at the beginning of the game, I don't think I would have ever traded Goff for Wardy. And I
I
did.
think it's a little inexplicable, to be honest with you, that Katie doesn't attack Wardy.
Well, I mean, yes and no. I mean, at this point, right? She's probably sized up the type of player that Wardy is, and there's some players on the circuit that are very good at finding players that don't have a lot of ambition and then using that to their advantage. Or maybe, I don't know if ambition is the right word, but they're not decisive, and they're very good at influencing those players because they're also very nice players. They're just a lot more decisive than the undecisive nice players. And so they're able to use that. I agree that the natural continuation here should be Katie attacking Germany. I mean, that is the natural continuation, but also, that's not exactly Katie's play style either. At this point, Katie's play style that's been very effective is basically finding the player that she can kind of be the mama bear to. And then those players give her centers so that she board tops. So she's become very, very effective at this. And so my hats off to her about finding those type of players. And so, eliminating probably, I would say the more competent one and allying up with the one that's a more Care Bear type player. And
so right here is sort of a key moment, right? Which is
yeah,
Goff disbands Vienna and Bohemia.
Yeah. By the way, I want to say one thing here. This continued whittling of Goff is 100% you. These are not my ideas. Like, I did the big stab, yes, but after that, you completely, as I recall, now maybe I'm wrong on this. Maybe not. Maybe the last one was me, because I think I was looking at the map and what Goff had proposed to us, he did do, but he also could have really messed us over in that move.
He could have, and we just,
I think it was actually, it may have been me. I may have looked at it and just been like, you know what? Yes, Goff has done all this, but he could really mess us over if we do the moves he's proposing, and let's just take him out. I think that was me. I'm trying to cover myself.
That was you. But he comes to me now because he's blaming you.
Yeah.
And he's like, take Vienna, take Budapest, put me into Romania.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, that looks like I could do all that. I don't think I'm going to get anything off of France. And so but you come to me at the time and you're like, go to Katie and say you're going to throw dots to me if she doesn't take a 3-way draw. And then ultimately,
I'm not doing a split. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, 3-way board top. And then somehow that turned into you would throw dots. And I was sort of a bystander to all this, but I was fine with it.
Well, this was over a year. So the first time, yes. So I think in this moment around here, I don't know if it was this year or the next year, because we can probably start running through things. But it's very apparent that this game is going to be I mean, because you and we have a Southern stalemate line that we can set at any time.
Right.
So the only possibility that you are board topping, or that I am board topping, well, I should say the only possibility you are board topping is if Katie will agree to a board top. I still have, there's still a pathway, I suppose, for me to board top by taking your centers, but that's not very likely. You might get a center or two from me, but by the time that happens, Katie's going to take your stuff, right?
Right.
So our real play here ultimately is to say, hey, you know what? This is the first round, Katie. Let's have a 3-way board top and we'll go into round 2.
Which I was totally fine with.
Yeah. And so perhaps, I don't know if she would have taken that or not. I don't know what you were necessarily telling her. I think, well, the thing is, we had been talking, right? And she had not been making the move on Germany. So it began in my opinion that she was not really negotiating in good faith. And I have already done enough with Wardy. Wardy would say yes and then not do it. Katie was more diplomatic, and she would do the diplomatic no, where she like wouldn't commit, but kind of, oh yeah, maybe we'll do that. And so it became apparent to me about this point when she could go and grab centers and she wasn't, that whatever her play was, it wasn't to work with me and you really, right? She's
Yeah,
going for
what
the
she was
board.
telling me is she didn't want to do it now because she finally got Germany to move west. And I was like, but Germany east. And I'm like, Germany's already east.
Yeah, who cares? You got the units to do it. You got the units to grind this out. Do it. Oh, well, I'm waiting for the perfect step. Well, you got the units to do it. Make your moves. I mean, I get what she's doing. I don't think anything that Katie, by the way, does is wrong in going forward. I think she did things perfectly fine. Sure, the continuation move there is Germany. But the gamble she takes that she's going to get the board top, whether she goes with us or not, is not a bad gamble. And I think in a lot of cases, actually in most cases, I would have not given you any dots. But because this was a tournament, I was only playing 2 rounds, and because of my mindset coming into it, that kind of changed it. So yeah, you first talk to her and say, hey, I'm going to give dots to Russ if we don't do a 3-way draw, which to me, yeah, which you wouldn't have done, but it definitely seemed a lot more credible, right? That I will board top if you don't do this. And she wasn't going to do that. And probably a threat probably doesn't motivate her much anyway. I don't know if
she does. That was probably the wrong play with her.
Yeah, it usually is. But I don't think it ultimately mattered anyway. I mean, I don't think anything was going to get her to change the direction she was going. She was in a more dominant growth potential. She had the way to grow. And so she comes back. I know she comes back, I think, in the next year, so we can move forwards. Oh, wait, no, I'm already giving you centers there. So never mind. Go back.
Yeah, you start in 09, and this is where it starts.
Okay. So she comes back to us and she's like, well, here's what we'll do. I'll go take some centers from me and Wardy will go take some centers from Russia, and then we'll do a board top or something like that. And I go, wait a minute. I said, you're going to just go up there and grab centers and board top yourself and leave us down here where we can't do anything. And I said, look, I'm not going to just sit back here and watch you go board top. I said, I'm not playing for this tournament to win the whole thing because I'm only doing 2 rounds. I said, if you're telling me that we're just going to sit back while you go up and grab Morganti's centers, I said, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to make sure that Ed board tops over you.
And if we look at the turns, that's basically what you did.
Yeah. And so, I mean, to me, what's funny here, Morganti obviously played a great game here too, but it is just interesting sometimes, to hear him kind of arguing, against us when in reality, everything we did kept him alive, right?
Right.
He's like, oh, well, I don't know about this or I don't know about that. But at the end of the day, like the plan was for Katie to go and to board top off of his centers and not take anything from Wardy. And the only reason why he got, stayed alive and actually got better position was, well, 2 things. I mean, first of all, me not accepting that, but then also Wardy just doing whatever and letting people take his stuff.
Wardy was competing with you.
Well, and that doesn't make any sense to me. We were talking later and he was like, yeah, he's like, I didn't really appreciate, you giving your dots to Ed. And I said, I didn't expect anybody to appreciate that besides Ed. But that doesn't in any way mean, oh, by the way, I'll give some dots to Katie when it doesn't matter. I said this, I said, look, you guys, the only way that Katie can outgrow you, right, is if Morgante gives her his dots. And I didn't think that was going to happen. And even logistically, to them to really go down that road, they were going to have to throw to Katie and give a solo. And I don't think Morganti would give anybody a dot, but let alone he's not going to set up a solo opportunity. So I don't know. I don't completely understand why this game continued.
Well,
I
they
guess,
wanted you to, if you remember, the issue was they wanted you to be at 0. And I just told them I wasn't going to do that.
well,
I was just going to keep out racing
well, you know, it was
for Goff.
funny. So you said that you go. So we're all talking and they're like, you guys told me that you want to eliminate and get Russ to 0. And then all of a sudden, all of them wouldn't admit to that. Right.
That's what happened. That's what they told me. Yeah, correct.
Oh, no. Ed, you misunderstood what we're saying. We're not wanting Russ to go to 0. So they're upset now that basically I'm not letting Katie board top, which is fine. I mean, you're welcome to do that. And again, like I said, in a regular tournament, I would have just maximized my score and come out with either the second or the third. I think I would have probably ended second because even if you took a center or two from me, I think I would have been able to probably take that back once Katie made some moves on you. Who knows what happened, but I would have maximized the score out of that tournament and probably not given it to you. But regardless on that, the math wasn't there. And even if they're wanting, you to take me all the way out, I mean, what does that accomplish, right? That doesn't accomplish anything. I mean, I understand people get mad like when like what they want doesn't work, or they're unhappy that whatever their plan was didn't work, but it's a game, and so you just look at it and say, okay, hey, you know what, it didn't happen, and you move forward. So yeah, I mean, this game could have ended probably a few years before, but yeah, they were saying that to you, and then maybe you did mishear it, but I know this.
No, I didn't mishear it. I sure did.
Everybody was pointing fingers at each other. This person was saying it was Morgante. This person was saying it was Wardy, and it was then, oh, no, it wasn't anybody. And so it's that was kind of funny. I mean, it was petty to me ultimately. Hey, but I get it. I've been petty in a game before. But anyway, so yeah, it continues on until
here.
And I said to you, I said, look, I'm definitely fine with you taking all my centers. I said, but you should make them make you do it, right? I can just give them to you, sure, but the only way what was happening is every time they gave Katie a center, then I would give you one at this point.
Right.
And that's kind of, we were just setting everything up so that you could do it and setting up the stalemate line, and which that's always a fun tactical exercise to do. And yeah, so my big thing to me, my big failure in this game ultimately was not pegging the relationship that Wardy and Morgante had. Now, again, I'm not saying that they've never attacked each other before. I'm just saying that the information I had, I shouldn't have got rid of Goff for that. Now, you probably would not have board topped if this hadn't happened, right?
Correct.
That probably wouldn't have happened.
I think you played it perfectly. I love it.
Yeah. I'm sure you are very happy with that decision for us to split Goff. But I personally am very sad with that decision, because ultimately I would have preferred just to play that game through with him, however that ended. But I felt like there was a good conclusion. But two, another big issue is, like, you can see how this ended for Germany, right? There was just, sometimes you just got to make the move that is going to help you have a great finish. And he had the opportunity there. And it was, you drop almost any player into Germany, they're going to say, look, if I'm going to grow, I'm going to have to make a mid-game shift. And I think there's a lot of players right now in the virtual scene that are very talented players and have good personalities. And I think they've got to get to the point where they're okay with making a mid-game shift if that's what they have to do, right? And there's just a lot of players that's like, the only way they'll have a good game is if they pick an ally that will never stab them. And there's certain players that they can find those players, and then they just
someone like me.
Me. Well, they vampire. They become a vampire to them. Sure, they never stab them, but they bleed them dry. And so I'll drop people like Katie and Andre, and there's a group of players that are very good players, very nice players, very talented players. And if they latch on to people like this, they're like a vampire. They just slowly take a center or two, and they never really stab, but they basically make sure those people don't ever have great games. Or if they do have a good game, the other person is still in the top seat. And Maybe I'm just jealous that I'm not as good at finding those players, or at least my play style. My play style is very plan centered, and so I like long alliance play, but I like I just I have a hard time giving people plans that basically are just, hey, you sit there and I'll go grow somewhere else. So that's basically what Wardy got from Morgante and Katie. His only path to grow really was through those two, and definitely taking out Russia. And so I that would be my big my kind
Your
of my big
big tip is to listen to Russ more.
no. No, but I think it's pretty obvious, like looking at the tactical situation. Like Katie didn't listen to me, but at the same time, I think Katie's decisions were very valid. Her decisions that she was making were perfectly fine. She told me later she thought that I was bluffing, that I wouldn't give you my centers, and that's generally not my game plan. Gameplay. I'm a pretty earnest, sincere player when I'm talking with people. The insincerity, that's your department, right?
The trick is sounding sincere.
Right. See, Ed is very good at sounding very sincere and lying through his teeth. Like, he is a master at it.
Come
On
on.
the other hand, the next game we're going to talk about is a perfect example.
Oh, please.
Yeah, but
all right. Look, well, this is enough for game one here.
Right.
We don't need to defame me further. It's about all I can take. Russ, congratulations on throwing me your dots. I needed them. I was happy to take Best Italy because of that. And I was first in the tournament after this game, and I was happy to be there. We will be back to talk about our next game together. But in the meantime, thanks to diplomacybriefing.com, and thanks to all the listeners who heard us through this game, and thanks to the players. I have to genuinely say I enjoyed this game. Every single player on this board was a delight to play with, and I learned something from. So thank you so much, and good night, Umble.
Good night.